Mark, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, so I invited you on to talk about a couple of things. I've been following your Twitter threads for a while.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, they're always interesting. And it's funny though, you and I right before the show we're talking about people think that like we're rolling in fucking dough. We're like, oh my God, these guys have thousands of followers in YouTube. They must. I'm like, dude, we're like slave wages over here. We make nothing.
That's exactly right. There's not people are like, man, you're gonna quit your day job. You got 30,000 Twitter followers. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's not really how this all works, you know.
Yeah. We're like fucking. You know how they're like A celebrities, B celebrities. We're like A, B, maybe like P or like
Yeah.
L, like we're down
Yeah.
the alphabet level of
Yeah.
celebrities.
Bro, you're famous. You got a lot of Twitter followers. No, that's not how the
No,
world
no,
works.
no,
You know,
exactly,
when you
exactly.
realize that you talk to normal people in everyday life and they're like, Twitter. I never go on Twitter.
People
You
don't go
realize
on Twitter, man. No.
I'm surprised at how much information is conveyed on Twitter and how much Twitter is ahead of the curve in breaking news events and things like that. But so few people use it on
Yeah.
a regular basis. I'm really fascinated. I mean, it's almost like having cheat codes to life a little bit being on Twitter.
Well, the interesting thing with the corona, especially within the crypto community, is we started picking up like early January. I saw people talking about it like
Mm-hmm.
mid-January.
Mm-hmm.
And the fascinating thing is you look at the different psychology of different platforms. Like you look at Twitter, and as you mentioned, it's more because it's the context too. Is like how can you condense your information in a set of characters? You're not writing out these massive theses or these like paragraphs like you do on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fast, it's real time. It's the closest thing to kind of like almost real conversation you can have on an online platform. The only thing they
Mm-hmm.
should have a fucking edit button though. My fat ass fingers are always fucking doing issues.
Edit. Yeah.
And
They'll never do an edit button.
no,
They'll
they'll
never
never
do it.
do it.
No.
And then like Twitter was way, and then at the exact same time where everybody on Twitter was talking about coronavirus for the first cases in Wuhan, you go to Facebook and there's not one post about it. No one's talking about it at
Mm-hmm.
all. And
Mm-hmm.
so the cadence, that delay is it was like a month and a half delay difference between these platforms.
It's amazing. I was going to Sam's Club at the end of January and buying up as much toilet paper as I could grab. And people are like, "What are you doing?" I said, "This thing's coming." I said, "I don't know how serious it's going to be or how crazy it's going to be, but it's going to get here and people are going to panic. And I want toilet paper." So I went and I stocked up. I bought a bunch of canned stuff. I was the only person in Sam's Club on a Sunday morning
Mm,
in late January, but that was because of Twitter. I like it was like I was tipped off to this. And you can just sense it. Sometimes Twitter's wrong, but for the most part, you can sense when something's brewing. Like my first real inclination to Twitter being right was in 2016 with the election and seeing this like buildup of Trump's going to win. And, sort of anything outside Twitter was like, no way, it's a landslide for Hillary.
yeah.
And you could just like watch it come together and you thought, wow, Twitter was ahead of the curve significantly on that. I mean, they were 9 months ahead on Trump. And so to see it kind of happen again with the coronavirus, you've seen it happen with some of these other world events. It's pretty fascinating. I can't get enough of it. The only problem is I get addicted to it after a while. Like, man, I spent 7 hours on Twitter yesterday. My phone doesn't need to tell me that.
But how do you use it? Like what's your strategy with it?
I have no strategy. None whatsoever. I just go on and tweet when I have a thought. Jump in the convo. If I'm getting tired of it or kind of, been on there too long, I'll jump off. Same thing. I literally have no strategy at all. Probably could have grown a lot faster if I had some type of strategy or model. I mean, I'm 6 years into doing this and I'm at 30,000, but it's mostly just been ad hoc. I've never scheduled a tweet. I've never had any type of platform set up or any branding or anything like that. So I don't have a strategy. I just whatever comes to mind. Depends how late at night it is. It depends how deep the thoughts will go. But that's about it.
And how are you like? Because I'm very fascinated. We have a couple of major events in the world right now. We have Corona, which is putting, I think they says like 1 billion people in actually more now. They're doing a federal quarantine in India now of 1.2 billion people.
Wow.
So Modi's like
Yeah.
I don't know how well enforced that's going to be, but more or less the statement went out. Modi's like, okay, quarantine for everybody, a billion plus people. So we have a billion plus people around the world who's in quarantine. We have a massive economic crash right now. The S&P and the Dow has dropped 35 points. Oh, sorry, 35%. We had a little bit bounce today, about 11%, but I think that is a mistake. This is going to be a lot of shorters are out there. I think we're going to drop much more. And we're seeing a massive economic impact. We are seeing, Boeing shut down, which that company should be absolutely demolished. What a fucking, not the company itself, but they should restructure it, bankruptcy, fire every board member, no benefits, no severance packages, all these fucking crooks out there on and put proper operators. This includes all airlines. So, people have a misconception when we like let the company go. That's not how it works. What we mean by let the company go, it's like claim bankruptcy, fire everybody, and restructure it so we have better operators. And so we have this going on. We are probably going to have the highest rate of unemployment both in Canada and United States. And in fact, in the world, I was looking at the unemployment rates in Scandinavia, like Denmark, Sweden, all the Western European countries. Those are skyrocketing. And at the exact same time, we're having the crazy chaos with Bitcoin fucking ripping right now, and everyone's screaming, store value, asset, blah, 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 blah. But I would love to know your kind of perspective. Do you have any thoughts about this? Do you kind of predict anything within? And it's not like far, like a year prediction, but in short term, where do you see us within like the next 3 months to 6 months?
Well, first of all, I'm fairly optimistic. I think the unemployment rate will bounce back pretty quickly. A lot of the unemployment right now is restaurant servers and bartenders and people who've lost their job because everything's shut down. And so those will come right back for the most part, as long as this doesn't go. I heard today Trump said something about Easter. I think that's a pretty good cutoff point. I think if he's right and we can get things back running by Easter, I think the damage will be pretty reversible. People will go out. There'll be some pent up demand. People rush out to their favorite restaurants and bars, and I think things will recover fairly nicely. If we go beyond Easter, I'm not optimistic at all. I think there's a cutoff point somewhere around there, around mid-April, where we will see longer term effects. A lot of these businesses will go out of business. So, like your favorite restaurant and bar, if we're open in mid-April, they're probably going to make it. If it's mid-May, mid-June, they're probably not going to be back. So that's, to me, I think we'll see the bounce back. Right now, we're not seeing a lot of corporations cut staff. We're seeing a few anecdotes, but what we're not seeing is widespread layoffs, like what happened in 2008, where as soon as we had an excuse and a recession, tons of companies like Ford and everybody would just laid everybody off. They had like pent up. They were waiting for an excuse to lay people off. I think corporations have been running pretty lean for a long time. The hiring, they've been actually struggling to hire. So I don't think we'll see that big of corporate layoffs unless this goes on longer than we think it's going to go on. So I'm optimistic. I think we're going to be okay for the most part. As far as equities, it's like playing the slot machine right now. I just don't know. I think today was like a happy little bounce. If you put some money in yesterday, take it out at the end of the day today and take your winnings and get the heck out of Dodge, because I don't know what's going to happen. They haven't passed the stimulus package yet. Who knows if they'll get something done on that front or not. And we just don't know what the fallout is from shutting this entire country down for, I don't know what, by the time it's all said and done, it might be 4 or 6 weeks, if on the good side of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think equities have a ways to go still.
Like long term, I'm obviously optimistic. I'm an optimistic person, but short term, I think the damage has been done, because most people forget, like, let's talk about North America. So Canada, United States. I'm not too familiar with the Mexico statistics, but just Canada, United States for the most part. The most people live paycheck to paycheck. The average savings for people is about $400. So the damage has been done for them to and that's why there's a big, let's say, how would you call it? Kind of rally right now for people to kind of freeze rent for at least for a month.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
It's complicated, right? Then it's like, even, they're saying about like freezing mortgage. Well, we called up our guys. It's not really freezing morttage. It's some bullshit. Complete bullshit. It's like I actually pay more in interest. I'm like, fuck off on my freezing shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, this is a scam. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm paying you more? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, fuck, the event business got shut down early. So we're talking about, let's say, all the major league players, NFL, NBA, NHL, like the major league sports, and that affects the stadium. That affects the what's called the taxi service there, the local restaurants. So people are behind already. I think 3 weeks to a month on their salary, depending within that industry. So
Sure.
this is kind of like a ripple effect when it comes to rent. Rent to mortgage to the bank, so lenders is like up the ladder we fucking go.
Oh yeah, well, I tweeted that out last night. I said April 1st is coming, and that's when rent and mortgages and all that stuff is due. And you've got 30-40% of the country right now that hasn't got a paycheck for the past 2 weeks. So are they going to make rent? Are they going to make their payments? A lot are not. Some are going to have some savings and dip into it, but a good chunk. I mean, even if say 10% of everybody in the country misses their mortgage or rent payment, we're in trouble, right? I mean, that's not going to be a good situation. I think they need to do something from the federal level to give everybody at least a 1 month reprieve. And I don't mean, like you said, where they give you a month off, but then you owe 2 months next month. People can't come back from that.
How the fuck do you come back from that?
You can't. Most people who are living paycheck to paycheck aren't going to make up for this lost paycheck and be able to make 2 payments next month. It's just never going to happen. You have to really just defer it. Like, for example, if you got a 30-year mortgage and you can't make April 1st payment, they just tack the payment on at the end. Fine. Just make my term 1 month longer. That's fine. But don't make me make up 2 payments next time, because I'll never be able to. And that's the way most people work. It's complicated though, because on the rent side, the mortgage side is easy. Most mortgages are owned in some way or backed by the federal government, and they could put something in pretty quickly. The rent side is trickier. So you could give landlords a break on their mortgage, which would be fine. And they could pass that savings on to their tenants. But what if you don't have a mortgage? What if you own an apartment building and there's no mortgage on it, and you're renting to 10 people?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the incentive for you to give those 10 people a break for a month on your rent? How do you do that? We have to have some program in place, and it gets really complicated really fast. And I don't know if they can come up with something like that. I think there's so many complexities and so many, or what if and then you'll get people saying, well, my mortgage is paid off, and what the heck? Now I'm not getting any help. Everybody else gets help. And the same thing with the student loans. Well, you're going to pay off a bunch of student loans for people, but then people like me, I'm like, well, I busted my ass for 5 years to pay off my student loans. So now what do I do?
Don't you see this though? There's a trend with majority of the government programs. It rewards people who make the worst decisions.
For sure. Well, I mean, look at the general consensus right now is we need help. We need a bailout. We need somebody to help us. This is not our fault. Please help us. Please figure, what you're not seeing a lot of is, well, shit, this sucks, but I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to rely on anybody to help me. I'm not going to wait for Nancy Pelosi to come up with something that puts money in my pocket. I'm just going to dig in, do the fucking work, and get on with my life. And I think those people, that's going to really separate this incident will separate the people who are really in it to grind, and the folks who are just waiting for the handouts. I mean, right now, there's people like Amazon's hiring 100,000 people, right?
Yeah.
If you're laid off, if you're a server or somebody and you don't have an income coming in, you can sit around and you can wait and hope things open back up, and Nancy sends you a check and all that stuff. Or you can go out and just apply for the Amazon job and start dropping packages on people's porches. Or you can go over to Kroger or Walmart and stock shelves, whatever. There's opportunities for people, and even if you do that and you still get a check on top of it, great. Now you're twice as far ahead as the next guy. You can throw some money in stocks or something, and you can really start a snowball that goes forward and makes your life better. So
there's a problem with that though, and there's a way to fix that actually. So I'm not too familiar within the States, but Canada has a horrendous problem with whether it's EI or welfare. It's a horrible incentive model. So what's a percentage for unemployment insurance in the States from your regular salary?
Oh gosh, it's really small. It's
like
not
30%?
Yeah, it's like fixed dollar amount. Like in Michigan, it's $400 per week.
Okay, so it's $400 per week. So 4 times 4 is 16. So let's say just under $2K a month, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I start working, I don't get that anymore, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so these jobs at Amazon, they're minimum wage jobs for the most part.
I think so. Yeah.
Give or take.
I'm not
So
for sure. I'm not sure,
yeah,
but yeah.
give or take, like roughly. If they're hiring
Mhm.
100,000 people, each state has different minimum wage laws. It's not like Canada. Canada kind of
Correct.
like a broad thing.
Yeah.
Okay, the minimum wage after taxes is just tiny bit probably more than the 2K that you get
Right. Yeah.
per month.
Mhm.
So the incentives are so fucked up where the person's like, why the fuck am I going to work 40 hours a week when I can collect my $1,600 a month and do hustling on the side for cash? So the solution to this is,
Mhm.
in this circumstance, give them both.
Mhm.
Keep on collecting the EI until it's done, because there's a set
Yeah.
period of time depending, because you paid into it. It's a government fucking
Right.
program, right?
Exactly.
And continue doing your work.
For sure. I think that's fair. I think any type of package that comes out of this should include, everybody should get some type of relief, regardless of your employment situation, because everybody's facing different hardships. It might not be employment, but it might be other things, that you can't really quantify. And so, I think there's a lot of things I don't like about the rumors coming out of Washington, but we'll see what ends up coming out.
What are some of the rumors?
Well, I think they were talking about, putting a means test on the payments they give out. So if you make over $75,000 a year as a single person, you don't get any of the money, and they're basing it on 2018 income. Well, a lot's changed in 2 years. I mean, I think we can all attest to that. And so you might have had a pretty good year in 2018, but things are tough right now, and they're going to leave you hanging while the guy who didn't do that well in 18, but's doing pretty well right now, didn't lose his job, gets money. So I really hope they iron some of those things out. I think it's kind of bullshit that I think that the right answer is you just give everybody money. If you're going to give out money, it has to be for everyone, and it has to be the same amount for everybody. And that in some ways is progressive, in the sense that if you give everybody $2,000, it's going to be a lot more impactful for the laid off bartender than it is for the, $100K lawyer. And that's fine, right? You can't really discriminate and figure out who needs more money, but it's going to be more impactful at the lower levels for sure. And just let it ride. I mean, they're basically printing money anyway at this point.
They're printing $500 billion in the morning and $500 billion in the evening.
It's crazy, isn't it? Just,
unlimited. This isn't even QE anymore. We've entered MMT life cycle. We are now in the fact that there's money has no value, and the only reason money has value is because we force you to pay taxes. That's it. And we have an army, and if you don't pay taxes, well, guess what?
And how do we fix it? I mean, what's next? Inflation after this is all said and done? I mean,
long term probably will be long term. There will be inflation. Yeah,
you're going to pump this much money into the economy, and then especially if we come back fast, you'll have a real inflation issue, because you won't have lost all that economic growth that they anticipated, but you'll have thrown trillions of dollars into the economy, and I don't know where that's going to lead, but it'll be interesting to see, say the least. I can't predict where that'll lead.
Short-term, U.S. dollar is the strongest asset right now. Everybody wants liquidity. Everybody wants cash. That's short-term. It's the best. All other exchanges, like the Canadian dollar, is getting fucking destroyed to the U.S.
Oh, really? Okay.
Australian dollar as well. Even the U.K. pound is. So the U.S. dollar is the best right now. Short-term, medium-term as well. Long-term, couple of years down the road, if this continues, and if more policies is just to print money, and if we really have entered the MMT theory, let's say palladium, like we've actually entered that space right now, then it's like, just that $100 that bought you that buying power, just add another zero. That's how much you need to buy something.
It's going to be crazy. I mean, people are saying there's a bubble in real estate, and I'm not so sure about that, because I think real estate might be one of the more stable places right now.
Land, but I don't know about condos.
Yeah, I don't know. Condos, no. I don't know about in Canada, but condos are a horrible investment in the U.S.
Toronto's so expensive. Toronto's like San Fran. We have like for $1 million a ship box house, like an absolute ship. Yeah.
See, I have no concept, because I'm out in the countryside of Michigan. So, we can get a decent 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for like $200,000.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
With a little bit of,
is it 20% down or 5%? What is it?
You can get like 5% down too.
Fuck, over here is 20 though, like first time home
crazy.
buyer.
That's wild.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. So I think in the US anyway, in the residential housing market, things will stay pretty good. There's always a demand for places to live, and that's not going to change. And especially now, I think people are going to be less mobile with this whole thing. Even if we recover pretty quick, I think just overall travel and mobility is going to be way down for a long time.
I have an idea for that. I have an idea for that. Canada did this a long time ago, but I don't know if economically made sense. Air Canada did it. And it's actually a shame that, because we're a fucking big country, Canada. I used to live in British Columbia. Like, we're talking about sometimes it's faster for me to travel to Europe than to travel all across my own country.
Well, for sure. Yeah, right.
From east to west, right? From like, so think about like, let's say I'm like in the most east of the United States in the Maritimes, you know, then I got to fly all the way West Coast somewhere, all the way to California. You guys have much better, way cheaper. Ours is expensive. Like for me to fly from Toronto to Vancouver on average, depending, it's seasonal, like I would average out to like 600 to 700 bucks US a flight. It's fucking expensive.
That's expensive. Yeah. Okay.
Expensive. Compared to like if I'm in Buffalo or Detroit, I can go to Florida for like 100 something bucks.
For sure. I know Detroit to Florida, pretty common route for us. And
yeah,
it's probably 250 on
that's amazing
on a bad day, you know?
And so what we need to do to encourage travel and mobility, which is great for the economy, for everybody, is the Netflix model, where during the summer, obviously, because we're seasonal, at least the, you know, Northern hemisphere in the United States and Canada, let's do a Netflix model where, hey, for the summer, so we can say May, June, July, August, maybe even September, it's still warm, for like a flat rate of maybe like $2,000, right? All you can travel.
That's kind of interesting. An interesting model.
Like I would go everywhere.
That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? I mean, like
everywhere. Absolutely,
almost like a timeshare.
Yeah.
For flights. I wonder how that would work. It'd be like that. What was that movie ticket thing that went bankrupt? Where it was
movie pass. I think it was.
Pass, where it was like $30 a month, and you could watch as many movies as you wanted, but it didn't work out.
Because the problem is people don't have time. How many fucking, and like it's a cadence. The issue that business model is so dumb to begin with is like how many movies are coming out that people really like.
Right.
It's already a decreasing business where people aren't showing up to theaters except for the big blockbusters. But travel is completely different. People want to travel. People have family members all around the world. Well, in this case, the United States and Canada. And if you know, especially here in Canada, if it's like very expensive for people to travel for $600-700, if all of a sudden, if I average out all my flights, that flight comes to $100, I'm there and I'll be in Vancouver every weekend for $100.
Well, that'd be pretty sweet. I feel like demand going down. Well, it ties into what you said at the beginning of this about Boeing and the airlines, right? I think the airlines are due for a major restructuring. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but
100%.
You know, it's been a disaster ever since 9/11, really. Air travel in the US has been a very unpleasant experience. It went, you know, the security's gone insane. And then you've got, you know, you get charged $150 every time you have a bag you need to check or something. And there's all these different rules, and it's sort of just a huge pain. You can't even pick your own seat unless you pay extra money, all these. I think, you know, I think we're due for a whole shakeup of that industry completely. I don't know about Boeing. Boeing's almost like, we keep bailing them out because they're basically just like a nationalized institution. They might as well just be part of the government, because we need an airplane maker in the country. We can't allow that to be outsourced. So we just keep bailing them out because we can't do without them. So we might as well just nationalize them to some extent. But the airline industry itself is different from Boeing in the sense that, you know, one thing that's remarkable to me about airlines is how safe they are. Given that it's such a shit show of a model, and the margins are so thin, I cannot believe that they are able to keep things that safe. Like,
there's a good book on that called Black Box Thinking, where they go into how they analyze the safety factors of the airline industry. It's actually a phenomenal book.
Really, I'll have to look into that. I'm fascinated by that, because they're just it's the safest way to travel by far.
Yeah,
even though it's such a cutthroat, you know, razor thin margin business, just defies all odds, really. And it makes you think there's got to be other industries that can run a lot more efficiently. If airlines can do that, then other things can be run much more efficiently. But I look in the future to traveling as we've had this run where maybe not within Canada, as you were saying, but in the U.S. and from the U.S. to international destinations, we've had this run on travel where it's essentially went from being a luxury item to being a basic commodity. Like anybody can afford to fly to London or Paris or whatever, you know, just about. It used to be reserved only for wealthy people who had that kind of money to fly that. Now just about anybody. I mean, you got college kids on spring break or like, well, let's go to Paris, whatever, it doesn't matter. And that model, I don't know if that's going to come back after this. I think you might see it be a little different, especially international travel might become more of a luxury again. But we'll see.
So you guys will become like Canadians.
Maybe. The funny thing is, some people from Detroit here will actually drive to Toronto to take international flights, because for some reason from Toronto,
we have cheap international flights.
I've heard a few people, drive to 4 hours to Toronto and go fly to,
I can go to Berlin for like $450.
Really? See, that's cheaper. That would be $1,000 out of Detroit. So
see, this is retarded. My own country cost me double to fly across, but I'm not going over any internet. It's the most stupidest thing. I just don't know. It doesn't make logic in my head.
So weird. Yeah. I hate those long cross country flights. Like I've flown to Seattle a couple times in the last few years, and it's like 6 hours going that way. But like you said, if you go 9 hours the other way, I'm in Europe, So it just feels like, wow, I flew all that way to go to Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to the Corona, like you actually think this is going to be settled before Easter? Easter's what, April 14th or something like that?
13th, 14th. I can't remember. Yeah. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I know our president tends to be optimistic, and he's the last day or two, he's been talking about Easter. I think we'll have some type of rollout by Easter, some sort of, even if it's a soft opening, I would say, where some areas with people who are not at risk and there's not a widespread illness issue can start going back to work. I really do think we'll have that to some extent. New York City, some of Northern California, Washington, where it's harder hit. I don't know about that. Like New York City is the real wild card is in New York City.
They got the military, man. I saw the fucking convoy in the streets.
I know, right? And what does that even do? Like the military, what does it even do? Just keeps people inside, I guess.
It's a psychological thing.
Yeah,
it's like, the military.
Yeah, I better take this serious. The military just.
But yeah, people on the streets are like, they're like this. If you watch them, they're like,
taking pictures. I know, right? Yeah. I was in Rome a couple years ago, and they have like, dudes with AK-47s just standing on the street in front of all the major tourist attractions. And that was so weird to me, but everybody's just like taking pictures, like selfies with the guys and stuff. There's really no presence there whatsoever. But yeah, the COVID thing, I don't know. It's just, your guess is as good as mine. I think we'll see some soft opening by Easter. I'm hopeful that it'll be more than just a little. But right now, I'm guessing just a little bit will be back online by Easter, and we'll see by mid-May, I think a large part of the country back open. I think we'll have the warmer weather, which seems to be holding true, that it does kind of slow the virus a bit. And so by mid-May, hopefully we'll be kind of back in business. And with the threat looming that in the fall, the shit could come back if they don't figure something out in the meantime. But
there's the biggest silver lining in this, and hopefully things, and Trump's been talking about this, a lot of things I don't agree with him, but a lot of things I do agree with him. It's not black or white, but one thing I really, really agree with him is we got to bring back our supply chain.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Like when people talk about I'm like, you guys understand, like we cannot be outsourcing the fundamental necessities of a nation to a it's a weird allegiance to a semi, not really enemy, but frenemy, that's a pretty good saying, our frenemy. They control very essential manufacturing it's a necessity for us. It's like, how the fuck does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't like that. I think we've kind of let it get away from us over the years because, hey, it was cheap shit, right? Like, man, I can just order all these crazy things that there's no way it should only cost me $20 to get this crazy cheap shit from China, but I'm going to keep doing it and I'm addicted to it. And that's what we kind of went down this path where it was like an addiction. I think we have to reverse it. My biggest fear coming out of this is that we won't learn the lesson because if things go back to normal fairly quick and there's not any long-term pain, we might not learn the right lessons. It has to really hurt to change that. I think people are aware, but when it actually comes down to not getting their cheap shit from China, are people really ready to do that? For example, I needed a space heater for my basement where I'm hanging out right now. I go online, there's a great one from Amazon for $80 made in China.
Hmm.
Guarantee you, if we couldn't get that thing from China, it'd be $200
Hmm.
from somewhere in the US. And are people going to be like okay with that trade off? But it does make me concerned. Like, for example, could we make an iPhone in the US? I don't know. We don't have any of the facilities to do it. We don't have any of the raw
But
materials,
I think people are too used to shit quality. Like my last business in China, I know
Mm-hmm.
the Chinese market well, and in all honesty, I'll give them credit for their quality is getting better compared to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I view it at two fronts. I view it from national security, which we
Mm-hmm.
know they're IP sealers. They're not really good at inventing. They're good at innovation. Now I would
For
say
sure.
they're not good at inventing anything, but they're good at innovating old things.
Right. They're good at making things efficient
Mm.
that already exist.
And so, like, my parents' generation, they come from former Yugoslavia. They're, part, when Tito was there. And it was more or less, you had really good quality. And this primarily in the United States was the same, no different. You had good quality products that if a product was broken,
Mm-hmm.
you brought it in and you got it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about a heater. So let's talk about your Amazon heater for $80. It's gonna it's gonna go eventually.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And it's not like you're gonna walk down the street and be like, oh, I'm gonna get this thing fixed. You're like, fuck
Yeah.
it, I'm gonna go buy another $80 thing.
Right. You just toss it, right? You just expect it to be kind of disposable. And
Correct.
if I get 3 years out of it, okay, cool.
Exactly. So I think people are accustomed to cheap quality, and they're
Mm-hmm.
accustomed to, I need to just consume, consume, consume.
Mm-hmm.
We've become consumers as opposed to producers in North America. And hopefully this is also a silver lining what people realize are, and I think a lot of people are seeing this firsthand, is like, oh shit, I never knew that. I never knew all these things come from China.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized, like, all this is connected. You're talking about like a lot of our medical supplies, a lot of like raw materials that we need for production over here come from China.
Yep.
Really? I'm like, yes.
Oh yeah.
And so hopefully this is kind of like a zeitgeist where people start focusing on, and it's better for sustainability too. I'm a firm believer in um, more of like a libertarian city states as opposed to like a huge, now like United States originally had that kind of idea, the republic, where you
Mm-hmm.
had states had superseding power over federal, but over time the amendments came in and the amendments started eroding federal state by state power.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at more or less city states, and kind of Switzerland's a decent example with the cantons that they have, this problem of corona and the problem of the economy today would not happen as is today if we had those systems.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that um I tweeted this out, I think yesterday or the day before, that the great American manufacturing comeback will lead us into the golden age of prosperity in our country. And I really do believe that. I don't know when that'll happen, if this will be the catalyst. I kind of hope.
I have an idea for that.
Well, good. Go ahead.
So forget bailing out these corporate companies that don't really need a bailout.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what makes North America great is entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
is small businesses, is people who really innovate. At the end of the day, there's even the big FANG companies like Facebook, Amazon, they don't really innovate. They're more or less like Google. It's a glorified ad agency that makes its money from ads.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon's the only kind of company innovating right now with hardware. Tesla as well, but more or less all these big technology companies are just software companies that make 90% of their money from fucking ads, or
Ads,
just
yeah.
or hosting servers, like in
Yeah.
Amazon's case, AWS.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you look at, my idea is this: it's much more efficient. So it focuses on game theory, focuses on biology, and focuses on just, you get more bang for the buck for the money you spend. Let's line together the best entrepreneurs of all caliber, and no questions asked, give them $1 million
Mm-hmm.
and go build. Just
I love
build.
I
Just
love it.
go out there and fucking build.
I love it. I love that idea. Have you ever seen the movie Apollo 13?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's great, classic movie, right? Hopefully everybody's seen it. But when they give those engineers, they give them a box of parts and they say, here's what's on the ship. Now I need you to make an air filter out of what's here. That's one of the most fascinating scenes, and I think that's sort of true. What you're saying on a larger scale is, you give the right people, the smartest people in the room, and you give them some tools and give them some resources, and you say go,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll just figure it out. They'll just
Mhm.
figure it out and they'll just go, right? That's like, Elon Musk and Steve Jobs have sort of been that mentality of like, let's just take what we got, figure it out, and get something out of this that's going to be awesome. I think you can do that for sure. I think the legacy corporations, like you said, the last thing I want to see is a bunch of bailouts. Billions of dollars thrown at old companies that did nothing but buy back stock over the last 5 years. They could have a ton of cash on hand, but nope, they bought back stock. All the executives got rich. Now they want bailouts. I think that's a bad look all the way around. Disincentivizes entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's what we need for sure. I think we'll see it. I think we'll see it come back in the sense that what the Chinese have been doing in factories for us for the past 10 years or more, but mostly really ramped up in the last 10, 15 years, is production innovations that we just don't have anymore. Like we were the first to do it, Henry Ford and the assembly line and all that kind of shit was awesome, right? Like that's what got us on the map at the beginning, and we were able to get through World War II with all that production. And then we stopped innovating once we let it go over to overseas. We need to bring that back. We're going to need the smartest people in the room to figure out how to do what the Chinese have done, because we're playing catch up now. We let them take it, and we need to take it back. And we can't, like you said, we can't have China be the only country that knows how to make a circuit board for a computer. Because what if they say, "Fuck you"? We're not giving you any more circuit boards anymore. You can't have any computers. You can't have any iPhones. Good luck.
Mhm.
We're in trouble. The good thing they depend on us economically right now to buy that shit from them to keep them
Well,
afloat.
we also protect the supply chain. Like people forget, United States has the strongest navy. No navy even comes close to the States.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, China can be pumping out all their shit. Their navy's shit. Like Japan Navy would fucking destroy them in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
And Japan's right there, and they don't have the best history between each other.
No.
And so like you have all these ships leaving China, but if the United States wasn't protecting that supply chain, those ships would fucking go nowhere.
True. Very true. They need us for now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm optimistic though. I'm hopeful. I think we'll see some good things come out of this.
Me too. Awesome, Mark. I appreciate it so much coming on the show, sharing your thoughts. Where can people reach you? I know you're prolific on Twitter. Is Twitter the best place?
Yeah, Twitter's about 99% of what I do. It's just Mark Allan Bovair at Twitter or on Twitter there. And you can look for me. I got some links to stuff in there, and I do a lot of personal finance stuff where I talk about personal finance issues for people, and that's really what I want to do is help people get their finances straight. And so if you want to get in on that, give me a follow.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks a lot.